Welcome back to Still Mind Path. We're all about navigating life through the lens of the Dharma. If you're looking for a calmer mind and a more meaningful life, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Let's get right into it. Maybe it's just the way the light hits the room this late at night. Or perhaps it's finally having a moment where the world isn't asking anything of me. But I've been thinking a lot lately about the weight we all carry. It's a strange thing, isn't it? How much of our exhaustion comes not from what we are doing, but from what we are wanting. I've noticed that when the heart stops reaching quite so far, when it stops grasping for that next thing, that next person, or that next version of ourselves, the suffering it seems to quiet down on its own. It's like a fever breaking. We spend so much of our lives convinced that if we just had a little more, we'd finally be at peace. But it feels more and more like peace is what happens when we finally decide that enough is a place we can actually live in. It's the same with the things we say. I catch myself sometimes in the middle of a sentence, wondering why I'm even speaking. We throw so many words into the air, empty words, meaningless chatter, things said just to fill the silence or to prove a point that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And I've realized that when the mouth stays a little quieter, when we stop inviting unnecessary noise into our day, the trouble seems to stay away too. It's as if we create our own storms with our breath, and then we wonder why we're getting wet. Even the way we treat our bodies, the things we consume, not just food, but the stress, the toxins of a busy life. If we just took in a little less of what is harmful, the body would know how to heal itself. It's all connected, isn't it? A simpler heart, a quieter tongue, a lighter life. It feels like the natural state we've just forgotten how to find. I was looking at the flowers on the table this morning, watching how they just are. They don't seem to be struggling to be anything other than what they are. They bloom when the timing is right, and when the time comes, they let their petals fall. There's such a dignity in that. I think we could learn something from the way a flower fades. It doesn't fight the season. It doesn't beg for one more day of summer. If we could look at our lives like that, appreciating the connections when they arrive, holding them with a warm, open hand, but then having the grace to let go when the season changes, maybe we wouldn't have so many tears. We've been taught that holding on is a sign of strength, but maybe the real strength is in the letting go. To see someone leave, or to see a phase of your life end, and to simply say, "Thank you for the time we had," without clutching at the hem of their coat. Life is a series of arrivals and departures, like the sun rising and setting. You can't keep the sunset, no matter how beautiful it is. You just have to sit there, watch the colors bleed into the dark, and trust that the light will find its way back in its own time. It's hard, though, especially when you feel like you've had to fight for everything you have. Most of us weren't born with everything handed to us on a silver platter. We weren't born into royalty or easy wealth. We've had to rely on our own hands, our own tired feet, to get anywhere. And sometimes, that makes us hard. It makes us feel like we have to be made of stone or diamond just to survive. But we aren't. We have hearts that bruise. We have moments where the fog rolls in and we're genuinely scared. We have nights where the only thing we want to do is cry, and I've started to think that's okay. We need to be a little kinder to ourselves. We're so busy trying to be enough for the world, for our jobs, for our families, that we forget we are the only home we will ever truly have. If you don't take care of your own heart, who will? If you don't value the person staring back at you in the mirror, how can you expect anyone else to see your worth? We have to learn to love ourselves first, not in a selfish way, but in a way that provides a foundation. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you certainly can't offer warmth to a cold world if you're shivering inside. I've also been thinking about the energy we waste trying to explain ourselves to people who aren't interested in understanding. We've all been there trying to find the perfect words to justify our choices, our mistakes, our very existence to someone who has already made up their mind about us. But maybe silence is the better path. If someone understands you, no explanation is necessary. And if they don't, well, all the eloquent speeches in the world won't change that. It's better to just live honestly, to walk through this life with a clear conscience, and let time do the talking. Time has a way of revealing the truth of a person's heart. As long as you can look at the sky and then look at your own soul and not feel ashamed, that has to be enough. We just have to be sincere. If we are deep and true, eventually we will find those who resonate at that same frequency. It's not about how many people like us. It's about the quality of the connection with the few who really see us. Life is so unpredictable. We spend all this time trying to plan and predict, but so many of the answers we're looking for don't need to be explained. They just need to be lived. If something brings you joy, keep doing it. Whether it's raining or the sun is shining, just keep walking your path. The road under your feet is yours alone. No one else can feel the pain in your heart, and no one else can truly taste your happiness. We have to experience our own suffering to find our own strength. It's tempting to want to lean on someone else, to wait for someone to come along and save us or make it all make sense. But the truth is, leaning on someone else is never as stable as standing on your own 2 feet. Even the best people can't carry us forever. I've realized that the world doesn't always act like a mother. It doesn't always want to soothe us or protect us from the cold. Sometimes, the world feels more like a very strict teacher, someone who doesn't mind if you get a little tired or a little bruised, as long as you're learning the lesson. Society can be harsh. It tells us that our tears don't matter, that our grievances don't change anything, that complaining is just noise. It teaches us that if we don't push ourselves, we'll be left behind. And in a way, that's a painful truth to swallow. We have to learn to swallow the bitterness, to hide the tears when we need to, and just keep moving. It's not that we're being cold, it's that we're being forged. You can't know the sweetness of life if you haven't tasted the salt. You can't understand the depth of human nature until you've seen its shadows. Every tear that has fallen, every mile you've walked when you wanted to give up, every heavy burden you've carried, all of that is what makes you, you. It carves out a space inside of you that is uniquely yours. It gives you a perspective that no one else has. So, when the world is cruel or demanding, maybe we can see it as a forge. We're being tempered. We're being shaped into something more resilient, something more capable of handling the complexities of being alive. It's about finding the courage to step out into that world, even when it feels overwhelming, and knowing that we have the inner resources to face whatever comes. And maybe part of that maturity is learning how to see the world through eyes other than our own. We spend so much time locked inside our own heads, our own needs, our own problems. But there's a quiet peace that comes when we start to think about the people around us. If we want to receive, we have to know how to give. If we want someone to understand us, we have to practice being tolerant. If we want respect, we have to hold ourselves with dignity. It's a reciprocal thing. When we consider how difficult a situation might be for someone else, often they begin to consider us too. We aren't all in the same body, so we can never truly know what it feels like to be someone else. What feels like a small thing to you might be a mountain for the person standing next to you. And what haunts you at night might be something they would never even think twice about. We're all looking at the same world through different lenses, different histories, different wounds. The most beautiful thing you can do for someone is to just try to stand where they are for a moment. to see the pressure they're under, the fears they're trying to hide. When two people can reach that point where they truly value the other person's perspective, everything changes. The problems don't necessarily go away, but they become lighter. They become something you can navigate together with a bit more gentleness. It's that quiet understanding, the kind that doesn't even need words, that really sustains us. Knowing that someone sees your struggle and doesn't judge you for it, that's a rare gift. And we're all so imperfect. We all make mistakes. We all have days where we're not our best selves. Work doesn't always go well. Relationships get tangled. If we can just shift our perspective, even a little bit, the friction of life starts to ease. We start to see that the person we're frustrated with is probably just as tired and overwhelmed as we are. I was thinking about anger the other day, and how much damage it does before we even realize we've lost our balance. When you're angry, it's like there's a fire inside your chest, and every word you speak is scorched by it. We say things we don't mean, things that cut deep, things that we can't take back once the air has cooled. I've learned that when the fire starts to rise, the best thing to do is just be silent. Don't speak, don't act, just wait for the balance to return. Because anything said in anger is rarely true, and it's almost never helpful. We get so worked up over the opinions of people who don't even know us, or we take our frustrations out on the people who love us the most. It's a strange kind of self-sabotage, isn't it? To hurt the ones who care, just because we're hurting. It's a strange thing, isn't it? How we often feel the most powerful when we are raising our voices, as if volume could somehow make our truths more solid. But I've come to realize that when we speak out of anger, we aren't really communicating at all, we're just leaking. We're leaking our own peace, pouring it out into the air until there's nothing left inside but a hollow, burning heat. I've noticed that when I'm out of balance, the best thing I can do, the only kind thing I can do, is to simply be still, to be quiet, because every word spoken in that state is touched by the flame. It doesn't matter how right we think we are. If the words are hot with fire, they're going to burn whoever is standing in front of us. And more often than not, the people standing right in the path of that heat are the ones we love the most. It's a painful irony. We're polite to strangers, patient with colleagues, and careful with the people we barely know. But with the people who hold our hearts, we sometimes let ourselves become reckless. We rely on their love like a safety net, thinking we can fall into it with all our jagged edges and they'll just catch us. Over and over again, we demand so much from them, forgetting that they are carrying their own weights, their own silent battles. It feels like a form of selfishness, really a quiet, unintentional kind of ego that assumes their love is an infinite resource that doesn't need tending. But love, like anything else that lives, can be bruised. It can be exhausted. I've been reflecting on why that anger even shows up. It usually starts with something so small, a misunderstanding, a rumor we heard, a feeling that we aren't being respected the way we think we deserve. We feel the sting of a cold look or a careless sentence, and suddenly we're sharpening our own weapons. But when we use someone else's mistake as a reason to hurt them, or to hurt ourselves, we're really just handing them the keys to our happiness. We're saying, your actions have the power to decide how I feel today, and that's a lot of power to give away. Think about the words we use. They're like keys, aren't they? They can unlock a heart, or they can lock it so tight that no one can get back in. But they're also like blades. I've seen people use words that cut so deep they don't even draw blood. They just leave these invisible scars that itch and ache whenever the weather changes, even years later. We tell ourselves it's okay because we have a good heart, even if our tongue is sharp. We say we're just being honest or direct. But a heart that truly wishes for peace doesn't need to wound to be heard. There's this feeling you get after an argument, isn't there? That heavy, cold silence that settles over a room. You might say, "I'm sorry," later, and the other person might say, "It's okay," but the air doesn't always go back to the way it was before. Some things, once broken, can be glued back together, but you can always see the cracks. You can always see where the light used to be and where the shadow is now. I've started to think that the real work isn't in learning how to apologize better, though that's important. It's in learning how to manage that initial surge of heat, to catch it before it reaches the throat, to realize that the person across from us is just as fragile as we are, and that they're probably acting out of their own fear or their own exhaustion. Life is heavy for everyone right now. Everyone is carrying a bag of stones they don't talk about. Some are struggling with work that doesn't fulfill them. Others are worried about money, and some are just lonely in a way that's hard to put into words. When we recognize that, when we see that everyone is just trying to find a bit of solid ground, it gets harder to be angry. It's like we're all on the same ship in a storm. Why would we spend our time trying to sink each other's lifeboats? I've also noticed that the world we see outside is often just a reflection of the world we're carrying inside. If I'm restless and frustrated, everyone I meet seems to be in my way. But if I can find even a small pocket of stillness within myself, the world seems to soften. The sky looks a bit wider, the trees look a bit greener. It's as if we're constantly projecting a movie onto the world around us, and we forget that we're the ones operating the projector. If we don't like what we're seeing, maybe the first place to look isn't at the screen, but at the film we're running through our own minds. We spend so much time waiting for life to get easier, or for people to be kinder, or for our circumstances to finally align so we can be happy. But what if the ease we're looking for is already here, just waiting for us to stop fighting everything? There's a quiet dignity in just accepting the moment for what it is, not trying to change it, not trying to fix it, but just being with it. Like a mountain that doesn't care if it's sunny or snowing, it just stands. I think about the people who have walked out of our lives and the roads we chose that we can't go back down. It's so easy to get caught in the what-ifs. We hold on to these memories like they're anchors, thinking that if we just think about them hard enough, we can change the ending. But some chapters are meant to end. Some people are only meant to be in our lives for a season, to teach us something about ourselves, and then they move on. There's a peace in that, if you can find it. A peace in knowing that losing something doesn't always mean you've failed. Sometimes, it just means you're being cleared out to make room for something else. It's like cleaning out a house you've lived in for years. You find all these things tucked away in corners, old habits, old grudges, things you thought you needed but haven't touched in a decade. You think about throwing them away, but then you remember the day you got them, or the person who gave them to you, and you hesitate. You put them back on the shelf, and so you continue to live in this cramped, crowded space, surrounded by the past. But then, maybe one day, there's a leak in the roof, and those things get ruined. They get wet, they get moldy, and suddenly, it's easy to throw them away. You don't have a choice anymore. And once they're gone, and the room is empty and the air is fresh, you realize how much you've missed the space. You realize that the pain of the leak was actually a gift. It forced you to let go of what you weren't strong enough to put down on your own. Maybe that's what suffering is. A leak in the roof. A way for the universe to tell us that we're holding on to too much. We struggle and we cry because we're losing things we think we need, but maybe we're just being given our space back. Maybe we're being given our freedom back. I've been trying to be more intentional about the space I create in my own life. trying to be the kind of person who doesn't need to be right all the time. There's such a lightness in that, the ability to just let someone else have the last word, to let an argument fade into nothing because it just doesn't matter as much as your own tranquility. It's not about being weak, it's about knowing what's worth your energy and your peace. Your peace is worth everything. It's the only thing you truly take with you at the end of the day. You might notice that when you stop trying to control everything, things start to fall into place in a way you couldn't have planned. Relationships become smoother, work becomes less of a battle, and even the way you breathe starts to change. You're not gasping for air anymore, you're just breathing. It's a slow, steady rhythm, like the tide. It comes in, it goes out. It doesn't ask for permission, it just follows the moon. I think we spend so much of our lives trying to be the moon, trying to be the thing that everyone looks at, the thing that controls the tides. But maybe we're just the water. Maybe our job is just to flow, to move around the rocks, to fill the hollows, to be soft where the world is hard. There's a certain kind of power in being like water. You can't break it, you can't wound it, you can only move through it. And eventually, water finds its way to the sea. It doesn't matter how many dams you build or how many walls you put up. The water is patient. It knows where it's going. And I think, in a way, we all know where we're going to. We're all just trying to find our way back to that sense of belonging, that sense of being okay with ourselves. We look for it in other people, in our careers, in the things we buy. But those things are just mirrors. They can show us a version of ourselves, but they aren't the source. The source is much deeper. It's in those quiet moments between thoughts, those pauses between breaths. I've been sitting here thinking about how we often wonder why the world feels so out of sync with what we want, or why we haven't yet met the people who truly understand us. It's a strange realization, but it feels more and more like the world we inhabit is just a mirror, reflecting back whatever it is we're carrying inside. We tend to move in circles that match our own frequency. If my heart is cluttered with noise and defense, the people I meet seem to be the ones who bring more noise and more struggle. It's almost as if we're all broadcasting a certain signal, and we only ever hear the stations that vibrate at that same level. We look at the landscape from whatever height we're standing on. If we're down in the valley, all we see are the shadows. But if we can find a way to climb just a little higher, the horizon naturally opens up. Maybe that's why, when we feel like we're missing something, a certain kind of connection or a sense of purpose, the answer isn't always to go out and search for it. Sometimes, the most productive thing you can do is just stay still and work on your own heart. If the person you're hoping for hasn't arrived, or the opportunity you're waiting for hasn't knocked, maybe it's just because the room isn't ready yet. We want the flowers to bloom, but we haven't even finished tilling the soil. There's a quiet peace in that, I think. The realization that we don't have to chase the world. We just have to become the kind of place where the things we love would want to stay. We focus on refining ourselves, on clearing out the old bitterness and the quiet resentments, and suddenly, the world seems to change its shape around us. It's not that the world changed, really. It's just that we finally prepared enough space for something new to enter. And then there are those moments where we realize that some things are simply final. It's one of the hardest lessons to learn, isn't it? That some events, once they happen, can only be accepted. You see a person turn their back and walk away, and you realize there's no amount of running that will bring them back. You choose a path, you walk down it for miles, and then you look back and realize the road has vanished behind you. There is no return. There are moments in life where we feel so incredibly powerless, standing at the edge of a choice that can't be undone. We think that by looking back, by analyzing every mistake and every what if, we can somehow change the past. But the past is a stone. It doesn't move. I've noticed that if you can just look at that finality, if you can see that something is truly gone, there's a strange kind of peace that starts to grow in the emptiness. Sometimes, losing something is actually a much more peaceful experience than the struggle of trying to keep it. We exhaust ourselves holding on to things that are already trying to leave. We clench our fists so tight that our hands ache, thinking that's how we save what we have. But maybe it's the clenching that causes the pain, not the loss. If we can just open our hands, if we can just be okay with the fact that some things are meant to be temporary, the air around us starts to feel a lot lighter. I've been practicing this idea lately. This small, quiet art of yielding. It's not about being weak or letting people walk over you. It's just about noticing those moments when you're about to start a fire and choosing to just let the spark go out instead. We're so quick to jump into an argument, so ready to defend our pride or prove that we've been wronged. But what if we just didn't? I've found that if I can just endure a small irritation, if I can just be patient with a difficult word or a frustrating situation for even a minute, the need to fight usually just dissolves. A little bit of patience, a little bit of silence, and suddenly the thing that felt like a mountain is just a grain of sand again. We realize that we don't need to have the last word. We don't need to win every tiny battle. Most of the things we argue about won't even matter by next Tuesday, so why let them steal our peace tonight? It feels like we're all so afraid of being wrong or less than that we've forgotten how to just be kind. But if you can just hold back that one sharp comment, or if you can just choose not to wait for an apology that's never coming, you find that you're the one who wins. You win your own tranquility back, and that's worth so much more than being right. I've also been thinking about the people who stay. Real, deep connection. It's so much quieter than we think it's supposed to be. We're told that love and friendship should be these loud, dramatic things, full of grand gestures and constant excitement. But I've noticed that the most sincere feelings don't need to put on a show. They don't need to be proven every hour of every day. It's more like a quiet companionship that just moves along with you through the years. It's the person who knows your silences as well as your words. That kind of bond, it doesn't come from a perfectly planned evening or a specific set of circumstances. It comes from two people just deciding to be steady for one another. If there's a real affinity there, time and space don't really seem to touch it. You can be miles apart, or you can go months without talking, but the thread is still there, tied to the same spot in both your hearts. And if that thread isn't there, no amount of force or begging will ever create it. We often say that we don't know what we have until it's gone, but I think that's not quite right. I think we usually know exactly what we have. We just never thought we'd actually lose it. We live as if the people we love are permanent fixtures, like the mountains or the sea. We assume there will always be another morning to say what we need to say. We treat our health and our time as if they are infinite resources, but everything we have is just borrowed. Every person in our lives, every moment of ease, every breath, it's all on loan. If we could truly feel that, if we could feel the fragile, temporary nature of everything, I think we'd move through our days with so much more tenderness. We wouldn't be so quick to complain about the small things. We'd be too busy savoring the fact that we have them at all. I've started to realize that the moments we think are just background noise, the quiet morning coffee, the way the light filters through the window, the simple sound of someone breathing in the next room. These aren't the things that happen around our lives. They are our lives. We're so busy waiting for the big breakthrough, the big success, the big arrival, that we don't notice we've been walking through a gallery of masterpieces the whole time. And maybe that's the real secret to being happy, just making things simpler. We're such complicated creatures. We think ourselves into circles, worrying about what happened 10 years ago or what might happen 10 years from now. We carry so much unnecessary weight. But if you look at the world, it's not asking us to be that complicated. A tree doesn't worry about next winter. It just grows. The water doesn't worry about the rocks in the stream. It just flows around them. I've been trying to tell myself that it's okay to just pick up what needs to be carried today and leave the rest for later, or maybe leave it forever. If something needs to be put down, why are we still holding it? We're so afraid of the empty space that we'd rather carry a heavy burden than have nothing in our hands. But you can't start a new chapter if you're still obsessively rereading the last one. You have to let the story move on. It's like a piano, isn't it? You have the white keys for the happy moments and the black keys for the sorrows. You might want to only play the white keys, but you can't make music that way. You need both to create a melody. The struggles we go through, the difficult roads we have to walk, they aren't interruptions to our life. They are the things that make us grow. They're the things that temper us, like steel in a fire. You can't become someone of substance if you've never had to face anything hard. Every obstacle you've navigated, every problem you've had to solve, those are the things that have made you resilient. It doesn't matter how ordinary or quiet your life might feel. There is so much meaning in just being here, in facing the day with a bit of courage and a bit of kindness. Time is always moving, and people are always coming and going, and it's so easy to feel like we're just getting lost in the shuffle. But every day you're alive is a kind of miracle. Every minute that passes is a gift that you'll never get back. So why waste it being angry? Why waste it being small? I've been learning to let go of the need to be right, and instead, just trying to be at peace. There's such a freedom in that. To just let the world be what it is, and to let people be who they are, without feeling like you have to fix or change any of it. To just move through the world like a cloud, drifting, not leaving any scars on the sky. It's a bit like a dream, when you really stop to think about it. This whole human experience, it's shimmering and it's uncertain, and it's over before you know it. And I wonder if we could just be a little more gentle with ourselves and a little more patient with the silence. What else might we begin to hear? Perhaps we'd notice that the things we've been searching for were never really that far away, and that the peace we're so hungry for is already here, just waiting for us to stop making so much noise. I've been thinking lately about how we often describe our desires as if they were a destination, like once we reach a certain point, we'll finally be able to sit down and rest. But I've started to notice that human wanting is more like a bag with no bottom. You can pour everything you have into it: gold, praise, comfort, security, and you can watch it fall through the void, leaving the bag just as empty as it was when you started. It's a restless kind of hunger, isn't it? It's not really about the things themselves. It's about the more that always seems to be hiding just over the next hill. It's easy to see how this constant reaching starts to pull at the fabric of our peace. When we're obsessed with what we don't have, we naturally become a little sharper, a little more defensive. We start to look at life through a lens of scarcity, as if there's only so much sunshine to go around and we have to grab our peace before someone else does. And from that place of wanting, anger and confusion seem to grow like weeds in an untended garden. We get angry when someone gets in our way, and we get lost in the delusion that stuff will somehow fix the quiet ache we feel in our chests at 3 in the morning. I think about the image of a moth and a flame quite often. It's such a simple, tragic little story. The moth isn't trying to hurt itself, it's just drawn to the light. It thinks it's found the source of everything, the one thing that will finally make it feel warm and complete. It doesn't realize that the very thing it's chasing is the thing that's going to consume it. We do that too, don't we? We throw ourselves into the heat of our ambitions, our cravings, our need to be somebody, never stopping to ask if the light we're chasing is actually a fire. We see the glow, but we don't see the danger until we're already singed. And it's not just the chasing that's exhausting, it's the keeping. I've noticed that the more we accumulate, the more we have to worry about. We spend the first half of our lives working ourselves to the bone to get the things we think will make us happy, the career, the house, the reputation, and then we spend the second half of our lives terrified of losing them. We become prisoners of our own success. We worry about the market. We worry about what the neighbors think. We worry about the locks on the doors. There's a certain kind of suffering that only belongs to the person who has everything to lose. You see it in the way we hold on to our status, or the way we panic at the slightest hint of change. If we're lucky enough to find success through hard work, we find ourselves up late at night, guarding our pile of stones, wondering why we don't feel as free as we did when we had nothing but the clothes on our backs. It's as if the things we own have started to own us. We've traded our time and our tranquility for objects that can be stolen or burned or washed away in a flood. I've realized that no matter how much we save or how carefully we build our lives, there are forces that don't care about our bank accounts. Time passes, the world turns, and eventually, the things we've gathered will return to the earth. If our happiness is built on things that are temporary, then our happiness will always be fragile. It will always be looking over its shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's even more heartbreaking when you see how this hunger for more starts to seep into our relationships. I've seen families, people who should be each other's greatest sanctuary, turn into strangers over a bit of inheritance or a perceived slight regarding money. It's like we forget that the person standing across from us is more valuable than any amount of paper or property. We get so caught up in the mine and thine that we lose sight of the ours. We start to see our loved ones as competitors or obstacles, and before we know it, the home we worked so hard to build is filled with a cold, quiet war. It's all driven by that same bottomless bag. We think if we can just get a little more of the pie, we'll finally feel safe. But safety doesn't come from the size of the pie. It comes from the people you share it with. It comes from the knowledge that you are loved for who you are, not for what you have. I was thinking about the way we upgrade our lives, almost without thinking about it. You start with a bicycle, and you're so happy to have it, it gets you where you're going, and the wind feels good on your face. But then you see someone on a motorcycle, and suddenly your bicycle feels slow and small. So you work and you save and you get the motorcycle. For a week, it's wonderful. But then you're stuck in the rain, and you see someone driving by in a car, and suddenly the motorcycle feels like a burden. It's a cycle that never ends. The next thing is always better, always shinier, always the supposed answer to our problems. But the car needs gas, and the car needs insurance, and the car gets a dent, and suddenly you're right back where you started, restless, wanting, and just a little bit more tired. I've been trying to practice a different kind of living lately. It's a quiet idea, almost out of fashion these days. The idea of knowing when you have enough. It's not about being lazy or not having goals. It's just about deciding that you don't need to be in a constant state of acquisition to be a whole person. There's such a profound sense of relief when you stop trying to fill that bottomless bag. When you look at what you have, even if it's just a simple room, a few good friends, and your health, and you decide that it's actually quite a lot. It's like coming in from a storm and realizing you don't need to own the mountain to be warm. You just need a small fire and a roof that doesn't leak. If we could lower our expectations of what we need to be happy, we'd find that we're already surrounded by abundance. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the fact that our hearts are beating right now without us having to tell them to. These are the real riches. but we're often too busy looking for the gold to notice the sunlight. I've been reflecting on how much of our character is revealed by what we do when we're afraid of not having enough. That's when the real test happens, isn't it? It's easy to be kind when everything is going well, but can we be generous when we're worried about the future? Can we be honest when an easier path involves a little bit of deception for personal gain? I've realized that the person who can stay true to their values when they have nothing is the only person who is truly wealthy, because their wealth isn't in their pockets, it's in their soul. And that's something that no thief can take and no market crash can destroy. We spend so much time trying to be successful by the world's standards, but maybe the most successful thing you can be is someone who is at peace with their own reflection. Someone who doesn't need to take from others to feel big. Someone who understands that we're all just walking each other home, and that the only thing we really leave behind is the way we treated people. It's funny how we think we can take it with us. We build these massive lives, these monuments to our own hard work. But when the time comes to leave, we go out the same way we came in, with empty hands. Every cent, every title, every possession stays behind. The only thing that travels with us is the quality of our heart. If we've spent our lives being greedy and fearful, we leave behind a legacy of shadow. But if we've spent our lives being open and kind, we leave a little bit of light behind for the people who are still walking the path. I've started to realize that the less I want, the more I actually have. My time is more mine. My thoughts are more mine. I'm not constantly being pulled in 1,000 different directions by my own cravings. It's like clearing the clutter out of a room. Suddenly there's space to breathe. There's space to notice the small things. I can sit on a park bench and just be there. I'm not thinking about the next meeting or the next purchase or the next thing I need to do to get ahead. I'm just a person sitting in the sun, and that is enough. It's a slow process, unlearning the habit of wanting. It's something you have to choose every day, maybe every hour. You catch yourself starting to feel that old familiar itch, that feeling that you're missing out, or that you need more to be safe, and you just have to gently remind yourself that you're already okay. You're already here. You have enough. Perhaps the reason we struggle so much with this is that we've been told that wanting more is what keeps us moving forward. And in some ways, that's true. But there's a difference between moving forward and running on a treadmill. One takes you somewhere, the other just wears you out. I'd rather move slowly toward a place of peace than run 1,000 miles toward a mirage. I wonder what would happen if we all just stopped for a moment and looked at the person next to us, not as a competitor, but as someone who is just as scared and just as hopeful as we are. If we could see that their bottomless bag is just as empty as ours, maybe we'd stop trying to take from each other and start trying to help each other carry the load. It feels like we're all waiting for a permission slip to be satisfied. We're waiting for someone to tell us that we've done enough, that we've earned the right to be happy. But that permission slip is never going to come from the outside. No one can give it to you. You have to write it for yourself. You have to be the one to say, I am content, this is enough. And once you say it, and once you really believe it, the world starts to look very different. The pressure drops, the noise quiets down. You realize that you've been standing in the middle of a beautiful garden this whole time. You were just too busy looking for a better one to notice the flowers at your feet. It's a quiet sort of freedom, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be felt. And I'm starting to think it's the only kind that really matters. It's a funny thing, isn't it? How we can spend years looking for some grand revelation, some mountaintop moment that will finally explain everything. And yet the most profound truths usually show up in the middle of a quiet afternoon, or while we're just sitting here in the dark. I've been thinking lately about the sheer complexity we layer onto our lives. almost like we're afraid that if things were too simple, they wouldn't be real. We think and we rethink. We calculate the odds of a conversation that hasn't even happened yet. We weigh the past against a future we haven't even seen. And all that mental weight, it just makes us tired. It's like we're trying to navigate a forest by looking at a map of the entire world. We're so busy studying the borders that we trip over the roots right in front of us. I've noticed that the people who seem the most at peace aren't the ones who have solved all of life's mysteries. They're just the ones who have stopped trying to make everything so complicated. There's a certain kind of joy in being simple that seems to have gone out of fashion. We've been told that simple means easy or unimportant. But maybe it's actually the hardest thing to achieve. To just be happy with what's in front of you, a warm cup of tea, the sound of the wind, the fact that you're breathing, that takes a lot of unlearning. We have to strip away all the shoulds and the what-ifs until there's nothing left but the right now. I was reflecting on a story I heard once, a simple image that's been stuck in my mind. Think about a spoonful of salt. If you take that salt and stir it into a small glass of water, it becomes bitter. It's undrinkable. You can feel the harshness of it on your tongue. But if you take that same spoonful of salt and throw it into a vast, deep lake, the water stays sweet. You wouldn't even know the salt was there. I've started to realize that our sorrows and our frustrations are like that salt. They are what they are. We can't always change the amount of salt life gives us. Sometimes there are losses, sometimes there are disappointments. But we can change the size of the container. If our heart is small, if our perspective is cramped like that tiny glass, then every little problem feels overwhelming. It feels bitter. But if we can find a way to make our hearts a little wider, a little more like that lake, then the pain is still there. But it doesn't define the whole experience. It's just one small part of something much bigger and much deeper. It makes me wonder why we're so hesitant to let our hearts grow that way. Maybe it's because we think we have to hold on to our grievances to keep ourselves safe, as if our resentment were a shield. But a shield is heavy to carry. After a while, you realize that the shield is hurting you more than whatever you're trying to hide from. I've been trying to practice a kind of mental clearing, almost like deleting old, corrupted files from a computer. We carry so much around in our memories, the way someone looked at us 10 years ago, the words that hurt us when we were children, the mistakes we're still punishing ourselves for. What would happen if we just let them go? Not because they didn't happen, but because we're tired of living in a house full of ghosts. There's a freedom in just accepting that some things are finished, some roads are closed, some people have turned their backs, and that's okay. We think that by replaying the scene over and over, we can find a different ending. But the movie is over. The lights are up. The only thing left to do is walk out of the theater and see what the weather is like outside. It takes a certain kind of bravery to be okay with an unfinished story, to see the loss and realize that maybe, in a strange way, having less makes you more peaceful than having more. I think about the way a piano works. You have the white keys for the light, happy notes, and the black keys for the deeper, more somber ones. We all want to spend our lives playing on the white keys, but you can't make a real song that way. You need the black keys to give the music depth. You need the sorrow to understand the joy. It's the contrast that makes the melody beautiful. If we didn't have the challenges, the hard days, the moments where we felt completely lost, we wouldn't have any substance. We'd be like a shallow pond with no life in it. It's the weathering of life that gives us character, like the way the sea smooths out a rough stone until it feels good in your hand. And even when life feels ordinary, even when it feels like nothing special is happening, there's still so much value in just being present. We're so focused on the finish line that we forget to look at the trees we're passing along the way. We think the goal is to get there, but the truth is, there is no there. There's only ever here. If we can't find peace here, we won't find it anywhere else. It's like waiting for the perfect weather to go for a walk. If you wait for the wind to stop and the sun to be at the perfect angle, you'll spend your whole life sitting on the porch. Sometimes you just have to go out in the rain and realize that it's just water. It's not going to break you. I've been reflecting on the way we treat our own bodies and our own time. It's so easy to take our health for granted until it starts to flicker. We push ourselves, we ignore the fatigue, we tell ourselves we'll rest later, but later is a ghost. I was thinking about how, when we're healthy, we have 1,000 different wishes. We want a better job, a bigger house, more recognition. But when we're lying in a hospital bed, we only have one wish. Just one: to be well, to be able to breathe without pain, to be able to walk outside and feel the sun. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? That we spend so much of our wealthy time chasing things that won't matter at all when we're poor. I've noticed that when someone is sick, everyone around them starts to worry too. Their friends worry about the inconvenience, their family worries about the future, their colleagues worry about who's going to do the work. It's a circle of anxiety, and it makes me realize that taking care of yourself is actually a gift you give to everyone else. When you're well, when you're truly, deeply well in your mind and your body, you're a source of stability for the people around you. You're not just one more problem they have to solve. So, why not start living the life we actually want right now, instead of waiting for some future date that might never arrive? We're so afraid of being selfish that we forget that being good doesn't mean being a martyr. It just means being authentic. It means knowing what you need to stay whole. If you are gold, you will shine no matter where you are. You don't need to shout about it. You don't need to prove it to anyone. You just have to be true to your own nature. And it's okay to be imperfect. It's okay if the moon isn't always full. The moon is still beautiful when it's just a sliver in the sky. Maybe it's actually more beautiful that way. The not quite whole part of it makes it look more delicate, more real. Life is a lot like that. It doesn't have to be perfect to be meaningful. In fact, it's the flaws and the gaps that make it human. We're all just trying to find our way, doing the best we can with what we have today. The sun is going to rise in the east and set in the west, regardless of how we feel about it. We can spend the day being miserable and complaining about the heat, or we can find a bit of shade and enjoy the breeze. The day is going to end either way. It's our choice how we inhabit the hours. I've found that when I stop putting so much pressure on myself to be productive or successful, I actually start to enjoy the work more. I start to notice the way people's voices sound, the way the light changes as the afternoon fades into evening. It's about finding that sweet spot, that temperature where the water is just right to drink. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. If we can find that balance in our own lives, not wanting too much, but not giving up either, then everything starts to feel a bit more effortless. We're not fighting the current. We're just moving with it. And it's a long journey, I know. It's not something you figure out once and then you're done. It's more like a practice. You lose your way, you get caught up in the noise, and then you gently, quietly bring yourself back. You remember the lake, you remember the salt, you remember that you have enough space inside of you for all of it. I wonder if that's why we're so drawn to the quiet moments. Maybe it's our soul's way of reminding us that beneath all the roles we play and all the things we own, we're still just that vast, open sky, and the clouds are just passing through. I've been realizing lately that if I just sit around waiting for happiness to find me as if it were a visitor who might knock on the door at any moment, I might be waiting for the rest of my life. It's a strange habit we have, isn't it? Treating contentment like a destination we haven't reached yet, or a reward for some future achievement. But I've started to see that happiness is more like a muscle, or maybe a garden that needs a bit of tending every single day. It's something we have to be active about, even when it feels like the world is giving us every reason to be heavy-hearted. I've been trying this small practice. When a dark thought or a lingering sadness starts to cloud my mind, I don't try to wrestle with it anymore. I just acknowledge it, and then I gently try to usher it toward the exit. I remind myself that there are so many things in this life that are simply beyond my reach to change. The weather, the past, the choices other people make, they're like the wind. You can't stop the wind from blowing, but you can choose how you set your sails. There's such a profound relief in that realization, isn't there? That we don't have to fix everything. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just be calm in the middle of a situation you can't control. And I've been trying to practice being happy. It sounds almost silly when you say it out loud, but it feels more like an exercise in recognition. I've started smiling more, not for anyone else, really, but just for myself. When I'm alone, when I'm walking, when I'm just looking at the sky. It's like sending a signal to your own soul that it's okay to be at peace. And I've noticed that when you project that kind of quiet light, the people around you seem to catch it too. It's contagious, in the best possible way. We spend so much time complaining together, bonding over our frustrations and our shared anxieties, that we forget we can also bond over the small, beautiful things. I had this moment the other day. I saw someone who looked completely lost, just staring at a map with that specific kind of panicked expression. In the past, I might have just walked by, too caught up in my own schedule, my own internal monologue. But I stopped. I helped them find their way. It was such a small thing, maybe 2 minutes of my time, but as I walked away, I felt this shift in my own chest. Their relief became my relief. It made me think about how we're all so interconnected. When we help someone else, even in the tiniest way, giving directions, holding a door, really listening, when someone is speaking, we're actually helping ourselves. We're reminding ourselves that we aren't alone in this. We're all just travelers looking for the same things. It makes me wonder why we spend so much energy on criticism. We're so quick to judge how someone else is living their life or the choices they're making, as if we had the manual for how a human being is supposed to be. But all that criticism, it doesn't actually change them. It just creates this layer of negativity inside of us. It's like carrying around a bag of sour fruit. It's only going to make your own air smell bad. I'm trying to put that bag down. I'm trying to spend more time with the people who make life feel brighter, the ones who don't feel the need to tear things down to feel tall. We only have so many hours in a day, so many heartbeats in a lifetime. Why spend them in the shade of someone else's bitterness? And then there's envy. That quiet, stinging feeling that someone else has it easier, or that their happiness is somehow taking away from our own. But happiness isn't a pie. There isn't a limited amount of it. I've realized that most of the time, our unhappiness comes from these unrealistic expectations we have for ourselves. We compare our behind the scenes, all our mess, our doubts, our quiet failures, with everyone else's highlight reel. It's not a fair comparison. If we could just stop trying to reach that perfect level of happiness all at once and just be grateful for the small, imperfect joys, I think we'd realize we're already quite wealthy. I remember reading a story once that stayed with me. It was about a man who was clearly suffering, his face lined with the weight of everything he couldn't let go of. He went to see an old monk and asked him, Why is it that I can't let go of these things? Why do I keep holding on to the people and the memories that hurt me? The monk didn't say anything at first. He just handed the man a simple ceramic cup and began to pour tea into it. The cup filled up, but the monk didn't stop. He kept pouring. The tea spilled over the rim, splashing onto the man's hands. The man stayed still for a second, but as the tea kept coming, hot and steaming, it eventually burned his skin. Without even thinking, he let go. The cup hit the floor and shattered. The monk looked at him and said, "Nothing is impossible to let go of. Once it hurts enough, you will put it down." It's a simple image, but it's so true, isn't it? We hold on to our titles, our reputations, our bank accounts, our old loves, and our long-held grudges because we still think they're serving us. We're still under the illusion that the wait is worth the price. We stay in relationships that have long since gone cold because we're afraid of the silence that comes after. We stay in careers that drain our spirit because we're afraid of being nobody. We're still attracted to the heat of it all. It's only when the pain finally outweighs the desire, when the tea is so hot, we can no longer stand the burn that we finally, instinctively, open our hands. It makes me think about how many cups I'm currently holding that are burning my hands. We tell ourselves we're being strong by enduring the pain, but maybe the real strength is in the honesty of admitting that we've had enough. We wait for a sign, or a big life change, or a moment of crisis to force us to change. But why wait for the cup to break? I've been looking at my life like a house I've lived in for a long, long time. When you first move in, everything is clean and purposeful. But over the years, you start to collect things. You buy a chair because it's beautiful. Then 10 years later, it's broken and covered in dust. But you keep it because you remember the day you bought it. You keep old letters from people you don't even talk to anymore. You keep clothes that don't fit the person you've become. Slowly, the rooms get smaller. The air gets stale. You're living in a cramped, narrow version of your life because you're surrounded by the ghosts of who you used to be. But then, imagine a storm comes. The roof leaks, the rain pours in, and all those old things get ruined. The old chair is soaked, the letters are blurred into illegible ink. In that moment of disaster, it's suddenly so easy to throw them away. You don't feel the attachment anymore because they've lost their form. And once the house is empty, once the ruined things are on the curb, you walk back into the room and you realize you can finally breathe. The space itself is the gift. You didn't need the things, you needed the room to move. I think our souls are like that house. We clutter them with desires and expectations until we're suffocating. And maybe the storms of our lives, the losses, the disappointments, the moments of deep pain are just the rain coming through the roof. They're there to ruin the things we aren't strong enough to throw away ourselves. They're there to clear the space so we can finally see who we are without all the decorations. It's a frightening thing to be in an empty room, to have nothing to hold on to, no cup to grasp. But that's where the freedom is. That's where the joy that doesn't depend on anything else begins to grow. It's the happiness of just being. No labels, no past, no future. Just this moment, right here, and the quiet realization that you are enough, even with empty hands. I've been spending more time lately just sitting in that empty room within myself, not trying to fill it with plans or memories, just noticing how it feels to not be reaching for anything. It's a bit like waking up from a long, complicated dream and realizing you're safe in your own bed. You realize that most of the things you were so worried about were just shadows on the wall. It makes me wonder what else I'm still holding on to, just because I'm used to the weight. What other hot tea am I refusing to put down? I'm starting to think that the most important question we can ask ourselves isn't, what do I want next? But, what am I ready to let go of? Perhaps that's the real journey. Not a climb to the top of a mountain, but a long walk where we slowly, one by one, drop all the things we thought we needed to carry, until we're walking light enough to finally feel the ground beneath our feet. I've been wondering lately where we even start when we look for happiness. It's a word we use so often, like a destination on a map that everyone is supposed to be heading toward. We treat it like a hidden shore we have to sail to, somewhere far beyond the horizon of our daily lives. But I'm starting to think that happiness isn't at the end of the journey. It might just be the way the water feels against the hull of the boat while we're still moving. It's strange how we can go so far looking for something that's already sitting quietly in the room with us. Have you ever just sat by yourself, in the complete stillness of an evening, and let those big, quiet questions come to the surface? Questions like, who am I, really? Why am I even here? What is the one thing that actually matters when all the noise finally stops? I think the answer to those questions usually depends on what we've decided our purpose is. If we've decided that life is about accumulating, then money becomes the most important thing. If we've decided it's about power, then every step we take is about climbing higher, about status and recognition. But if we decide that the goal is simply to be happy, then the map changes entirely. Suddenly, the focus shifts toward our families, our connections, and that quiet, inner life that no one else sees. I've realized that the most fortunate people aren't necessarily the ones who have the most. They're the ones who know how to bring a little bit of light into the lives of the people around them. There's a certain kind of wealth in just being a person who makes others feel safe, or heard, or cared for. And to do that, you have to find a way to be happy with yourself first. You have to find your own simple joys, those small hobbies or moments of peace that keep you whole. Life is so incredibly rich and diverse when you stop looking at it through a narrow lens of success and start looking at it as a collection of experiences. It's in the small things, isn't it? We think happiness is a grand event, a wedding, a promotion, a big win. But when you really look back on your life, the moments that glow the brightest are often the most ordinary. It's being sick and having someone there to bring you a glass of water without you even having to ask. It's being cold on a winter night and having someone pull the blanket up over your shoulders. It's having a friend to sit with when you're old, someone who remembers the same stories you do. Those are the real treasures. I think about the things we're told to want, the luxury cars, the massive houses, the prestige. But what is a car if it doesn't bring you home safely to people you love? What is a bank account if your soul doesn't feel free to do what it actually enjoys? Happiness isn't about how many people are applauding you. It's about how many people are actually standing next to you when the lights go out. It's not about how beautiful or successful your partner is. It's about whether you can look at each other at the end of a long, hard day and still find a reason to smile. It's not about eating the finest food or wearing the most expensive clothes. It's about having a body that is free from pain and a mind that isn't haunted by disasters. There's a specific kind of happiness that comes from being forgiven too. We all stumble. We all say things we regret or make choices that hurt people. To have someone see your mistake and choose to stay anyway, to offer you grace instead of a lecture, that's a deep, quiet kind of joy. It's the same with being loved when you've failed. It's easy for people to cheer for you when you're at the top of the mountain, but the person who says, "It's okay, I'm here," when you've fallen all the way back to the bottom, that's the person who teaches you what happiness really is. It's not found in the words of praise from strangers. It's found in the quiet voice of a friend saying, "Keep going, you can do this." And then there are our parents. If you're lucky enough to still have them in your life, there's a happiness there that we often don't fully appreciate until the air starts to get thin. Just knowing they are there, a bridge to where we came from. It's a profound comfort. It reminds me that life isn't about being perfect. It's about being appropriate for the moment we're in. Sometimes, things don't go according to our plan, and we get so frustrated. We think the world is against us because it's raining when we wanted sun. But the moon doesn't care about our plans. It doesn't stay full just because we want more light. The world turns whether we are ready for it or not. I've started to think that closing our eyes to the world doesn't make the darkness go away. It just makes us blind to the light that's still there. We can't control the shadows, but we can control where we point our own eyes. There are no tools in this world sharp enough to cut through every obstacle, and there's no person who has figured out a way to avoid every struggle. If we wait for the perfect conditions to be happy, we'll be waiting forever. Life is like a glass of water. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold. As long as the temperature is something you can drink, that's enough. We don't need the perfect vintage, we just need to satisfy our thirst. Whether it's the season of spring or the dead of winter, if the weather in our own heart is right, then every day has something beautiful in it. We have these two paths we walk at the same time. There's the path of our dreams, which we travel with our minds, and then there's the path of reality, which we travel with our feet. If the mind moves too fast and forgets the feet, we feel disconnected, like we're living in a ghost story. If the feet move too slow and the dreams fly too far away, we feel heavy and discouraged. The trick, I think, is to find a way to let them walk together, to let your reality be enough for your heart. It's a strange thing to realize that most of the pressure we feel comes from our own expectations. We expect life to be a certain way, and when it isn't, we feel like we've been cheated. But what if we just stopped expecting? What if we just showed up? There's a certain kind of success in just making it through the day with a bit of kindness left in you. When you were a child, happiness was so simple. A piece of candy, a game of catch, a story before bed. As we get older, we make it so much more complicated. We think we need $1 million or a title to feel that same spark. But maybe the real achievement of growing up is learning how to be that simple again. Learning how to be happy with a quiet house, a decent meal, and a few people who truly know your name. I think about the people we've lost and the things we didn't say. We think we have so much time. We believe that we are the masters of our own lives, but we forget how many other people have to play their parts for our lives to even work. We depend on the person who grows our food, the person who keeps the lights on, the person who drives the bus. We're all woven together. And when we lose sight of that, when we think we're the only ones who matter, we lose our way. We sacrifice our future for a tiny bit of profit today, forgetting that nothing built on the suffering of others can ever truly last. Our time here is so short. It's just a blink in the grand scheme of things. Why would we spend even a single minute being angry or carrying around a grudge? If you haven't seen the end of the story yet, why not just keep moving with a smile? It's a gift to be able to offer a bit of warmth to the person next to you, especially when the world feels cold. If we can just find a way to be optimistic in the middle of the rain, that joy starts to spread. It ripples out. It's not a race where someone has to lose for you to win. It's more like a long walk through a beautiful, changing landscape. Some days the hills are steep, and some days the path is smooth. But the point is to look at the view while you're walking, not just at your own shoes. I keep coming back to this idea that we're all just visiting. We didn't choose to come here, and eventually, we won't have a choice about leaving. All we really have is the space in between. Some people choose to fill that space with things, money, power, stuff. Others choose to fill it with gratitude, with tolerance, with a quiet, kind of contentment. It's a choice we make every morning, even if we don't realize it. I was thinking about how we treat our own bodies when we're young, as if they're indestructible machines. We think we'll be healthy forever, but then the years start to show, or a sudden illness reminds us how fragile we are. In those moments, all the things we worried about, the money we didn't make, the promotion we didn't get, they just vanish. They don't mean anything. All you want is to be able to take a deep breath. All you want is to be able to walk to the window and see the sky. It makes me wonder why we don't treat our health and our peace like the precious things they are while we still have them. We're so busy building a life that we forget to actually live it. We're like people building a house, but never moving in. We're always waiting for the perfect time to start being happy, but the only time that actually exists is right now. Maybe the reason we find it so hard to be content is that we're always looking for perfect, but the world isn't perfect. The sun sets, the moon wanes, the flowers fade. There's a beauty in the imperfection, in the not quite whole. A circle that isn't perfectly round is somehow more interesting than one that is. A life that has a few cracks in it is a life where the light can finally get through. If we can just learn to accept the missing pieces, to be okay with the things we didn't get and the people who didn't stay, we might find that what's left is actually quite beautiful. It's like being in a garden where not every flower is in bloom at the same time. You appreciate the one that's blooming now, and you wait for the others. You don't get angry at the ones that are still just buds. You just stay present. You just breathe. And in that breath, you might notice that you don't actually need anything else to feel okay. It's funny how we often tell ourselves that just one more thing will do it. We think, if I can just get through this month, or if I can just save enough for that one specific purchase, then finally the internal static will stop and I'll be able to hear myself think. But I've started to notice that human wanting is less like a checklist and more like a bag with no bottom. You can pour everything you have into it: praise, comfort, gold, security, and you can watch it all fall through the void, leaving the bag just as empty as it was when you started. It's a restless kind of hunger, isn't it? It isn't really about the things themselves. It's about that more that always seems to be hiding just over the next hill. I've been reflecting on this idea of thirst, or what some might call attachment. It feels like the root of so much of our exhaustion. When we're obsessed with what we don't have, we naturally become a little sharper, a little more defensive. We start to look at life through a lens of scarcity, as if there's only so much sunshine to go around, and we have to grab our piece before someone else does. From that place of wanting, anger and confusion seem to grow like weeds in an untended garden. We get angry when someone gets in our way, and we get lost in the delusion that stuff or status will somehow fix that quiet ache we feel in the center of our chest at 3 in the morning. I think about the image of a fire. It's warm and it's beautiful, and we're drawn to it because we want that warmth. But if we don't know when to stop feeding it, the fire grows until it consumes the very house we're trying to heat. Our desires can be like that. We think we're just taking care of ourselves, but if we don't learn how to say this is enough, we find ourselves living in the ashes of our own peace. We become so focused on possessing that we forget how to just participate. It's even more heartbreaking when you see how this hunger for more starts to seep into our relationships. I've seen families, people who should be each other's greatest sanctuary, turn into strangers over a bit of inheritance or a perceived slight regarding money. It's like we forget that the person standing across from us is infinitely more valuable than any amount of paper or property. We get so caught up in the mine and thine that we lose sight of the ours. We start to see our loved ones as competitors or obstacles, and before we know it, the home we work so hard to build is filled with a cold, quiet war. It's all driven by that same bottomless bag. We think if we can just get a little more of the pie, we'll finally feel safe. But safety doesn't come from the size of the pie. It comes from the people you share it with. It comes from the knowledge that you are loved for who you are, not for what you have. There's an old idea about how weeds ruin a garden. It isn't that the weeds are evil, necessarily. It's just that they take up all the space. They soak up the water and the nutrients that were meant for the flowers. I think greed is the weed of the human heart. It's not that wanting things is a sin, but when that wanting becomes overgrown, there's no room left for the flowers of compassion or joy to bloom. We become so preoccupied with getting that we lose the capacity for being. And it's a heavy burden, isn't it? Guarding what we've gathered. I've noticed that the more we accumulate, the more we have to worry about. We spend the first half of our lives working ourselves to the bone to get the things we think will make us happy, the career, the house, the reputation, and then we spend the second half of our lives terrified of losing them. We become prisoners of our own success. We worry about the market. We worry about what the neighbors think. We worry about the locks on the doors. There's a certain kind of suffering that only belongs to the person who feels they have everything to lose. If we're lucky enough to find success through hard work, we often find ourselves up late at night, guarding our pile of stones, wondering why we don't feel as free as we did when we had nothing but the clothes on our backs. It's as if the things we own have started to own us. We've traded our time and our tranquility for objects that can be stolen, or burned, or simply forgotten by the world in a few years. I've been trying to practice a different kind of living lately. It's a quiet idea, almost out of fashion these days. The idea of knowing when you have enough. It's not about being lazy or not having goals. It's just about deciding that you don't need to be in a constant state of acquisition to be a whole person. There's such a profound sense of relief when you stop trying to fill that bottomless bag. When you look at what you have, even if it's just a simple room, a few good friends, and your health, and you decide that it's actually quite a lot. It's like coming in from a storm and realizing you don't need to own the mountain to be warm. You just need a small fire and a roof that doesn't leak. If we could lower our expectations of what we need to be happy, we'd find that we're already surrounded by abundance. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the fact that our hearts are beating right now without us having to tell them to. These are the real riches. But we're often too busy looking for the gold to notice the sunlight. I was thinking about a story I heard once about a very wealthy man who spent his whole life building an empire. He never gave anything away, never shared his time, never looked at the people around him as anything other than tools for his success. When he finally passed away, he couldn't take a single cent with him. His life's work was just handed over to the state, and the people he left behind didn't remember him with love. They remembered him as a shadow. It made me realize that wealth only really has value when it's flowing. Like water, if it sits still and you try to dam it up for yourself, it eventually becomes stagnant and bitter. But if you let it flow, if you use what you have to make the world a little brighter for someone else, then it becomes a source of life. I've started to realize that the less I want, the more I actually have. My time is more mine. My thoughts are more mine. I'm not constantly being pulled in 1,000 different directions by my own cravings. It's like clearing the clutter out of a room. Suddenly there's space to breathe. There's space to notice the small things. I can sit on a park bench and just be there. I'm not thinking about the next meeting or the next purchase or the next thing I need to do to get ahead. I'm just a person, sitting in the sun, and for the first time in a long time, that is enough. It's a slow process, unlearning the habit of wanting. It's something you have to choose every day, maybe every hour. You catch yourself starting to feel that old familiar itch, that feeling that you're missing out, or that you need more to be safe, and you just have to gently remind yourself that you're already okay. You're already here. You have enough. Perhaps the reason we struggle so much with this is that we've been told that wanting more is what keeps us moving forward. And in some ways, that's true. But there's a difference between moving forward and running on a treadmill. One takes you somewhere, the other just wears you out. I'd rather move slowly toward a place of peace than run 1,000 miles toward a mirage. I wonder what would happen if we all just stopped for a moment and looked at the person next to us, not as a competitor, but as someone who is just as scared and just as hopeful as we are. If we could see that their bottomless bag is just as empty as ours, maybe we'd stop trying to take from each other and start trying to help each other carry the load. It feels like we're all waiting for a permission slip to be satisfied. We're waiting for someone to tell us that we've done enough, that we've earned the right to be happy. But that permission slip is never going to come from the outside. No one can give it to you. You have to write it for yourself. You have to be the one to say, "I am content, this is enough." And once you say it, and once you really believe it, the world starts to look very different. The pressure drops, the noise quiets down. You realize that you've been standing in the middle of a beautiful garden this whole time. You were just too busy looking for a better one to notice the flowers at your feet, and the way the light catches the dew on the grass. I've been sitting here thinking about how much energy we spend trying to force the world to fit into the shapes we've pre-cut for it. We have this idea of how a day should go, how a person should treat us, or even how the weather should behave. And when reality doesn't match that blueprint, we feel like something has gone wrong. But I've started to realize that the world isn't actually acting against us. It's just being itself. The sun doesn't rise earlier just because we have a lot to do, and the moon doesn't stay full just because we find its light comforting. There's a quiet kind of relief in that, realizing that the universe isn't personal. It's just moving, and we are moving with it. It's like a glass of water, isn't it? Whether the water is hot or cold, it's not good or bad in itself. It's only good or bad relative to our thirst. If the temperature is right for us to drink, then it's perfect. And I've noticed that so much of our happiness depends on that sense of appropriateness. We don't need things to be the best in the world. We just need them to be suitable for where we are right now. A song doesn't have to be a masterpiece to be beautiful. It just has to touch the right chord at the right time. 4 seasons follow one another, and even if we prefer the warmth of summer, there's a specific kind of beauty in the stillness of winter, if our heart is in the right place to receive it. All it takes is a little bit of harmony between what is happening outside and how we are feeling inside. But we struggle with that harmony because we're so obsessed with perfect. We want the peak, the high noon, the full moon, the flower in its absolute prime. But have you ever noticed that the moment something becomes perfect is also the moment it begins to change? The sun hits its highest point and immediately begins to tilt toward the west. The moon reaches its fullest circle and immediately begins to wane. There's a traditional idea that the most beautiful state of anything is actually just before it's finished, when the flower is still a bud, or when the moon is just a sliver away from being whole. Because in that almost state, there is still room for growth. There is still a sense of eternity. The not quite perfect is actually where the life is. If everything were perfectly round and perfectly finished, there would be nowhere left for us to go. I've been trying to lean into that, into the gaps, the missing pieces, the things that aren't quite right. It makes the world feel so much more human. When we stop demanding perfection from ourselves and the people around us, we start to see the grace in the struggle. We realize that we're all just doing the best we can with the tools we have. Sometimes the tools are sharp, and sometimes they're dull, but the work goes on regardless. I think back to those times when I felt like I was being treated unfairly by life. as if the world were being a cruel judge. But maybe the world isn't a judge at all. Maybe it's more like a teacher, the kind who is strict because they know what you're capable of. A teacher who doesn't mind if you get tired or if you cry a little, as long as you don't stop walking. We learn so much more from the days that break us than we do from the days that hand us a trophy. You don't know the depth of your own resilience until you've had to stand up after a fall that you didn't think you could survive. You don't understand the value of a quiet night until you've lived through a year of noise. And then there's the way we treat ourselves. We're so incredibly hard on our own hearts. We push ourselves as if we were machines that don't need maintenance, forgetting that we are biological, fragile, and temporary. I've been thinking about that perspective you get when you're truly exhausted or when you're sick. It's a sobering thing to realize how quickly our priorities shift when our health begins to flicker. When we're well, we have 1,000 worries: money, reputation, the to-do list that never ends. But when you're lying in a hospital bed or even just stuck on the couch with a fever, those 1,000 worries evaporate. They don't mean anything. You'd trade every dollar and every bit of status just to be able to take a deep breath without coughing, or to be able to walk to the kitchen and make a piece of toast. Why do we wait for a crisis to value the simple fact of being alive? We live as if we're going to be here forever, as if our strength is an infinite bank account. But it's not. We're on a clock, and every minute we spend being angry or stressed over things that won't matter in a year is a minute we've permanently lost. I've started to think that the most successful person isn't the one with the biggest house. It's the person who knows how to take care of themselves while they're still healthy. The person who knows how to say no to the noise so they can say yes to their own peace. Because when we aren't well, when we're physically or emotionally depleted, we can't really be there for anyone else anyway. We become a source of worry for the people who love us. Our friends worry, our families worry, our colleagues worry. Taking care of yourself isn't a selfish act, it's a responsibility. It's the foundation that allows you to be a support for others. If you're gold, you'll shine, but even gold needs to be cleaned of the dust every now and then. I've been reflecting on the old saying that if you live a good life, trouble will stay away, and if you live a bad life, your luck will run out. But I don't think it's about luck or divine reward. I think it's just the natural harvest of the energy we put out into the world. If we spend our days being greedy and self-centered, we create a world of suspicion and isolation around us. But if we can find a way to be even a little bit more open, a little more satisfied with enough, then the world seems to soften. It's not magic. It's just that we've stopped picking fights with reality. I think about the hot tea story again, how we only let go of the things that hurt us when the pain becomes more than we can stand. I wonder if we can learn to put the cup down before it burns us. What if we could see the heat rising and just decide, I don't need to hold this anymore. It takes so much less energy to put something down than it does to keep carrying it while it burns your skin. Whether it's a grudge, or a desire for something we don't need, or an image of ourselves that we're exhausted from maintaining, we can just set it on the table. We don't have to break it. We just have to stop holding it. There's a freedom in being nobody for a while. To not have to be the successful one, or the strong one, or the one who has all the answers. To just be a person sitting in a chair, listening to the world go by. We're so afraid of being ordinary, but ordinary is where the peace is. Ordinary is where you notice the taste of the apple, the feel of the wind, the sound of a neighbor's voice. The extraordinary is usually just a lot of work and a lot of pressure. I've noticed that as I get older, my memory wants to let go of things, and I'm starting to let it. We think we have to remember every slight and every triumph to know who we are, but maybe we're better off forgetting. Maybe we should treat our minds like a house that needs a regular cleaning. If a memory doesn't bring you peace, or if it doesn't help you be a better person today, why keep it on the shelf? Let the dust take it. Let it fade into the background. There's so much more room for the present when you aren't constantly tripping over the furniture of the past. It's a short trip, this life. A few decades, if we're lucky. It's too short to spend it regretting things we can't change. The sun is going to set tonight, whether we're happy or sad. We can spend the twilight hours being miserable, or we can just sit on the porch and watch the colors change. The day is over either way. I'm learning to be okay with the fact that I'll never have it all figured out. I'll never be perfectly calm, and I'll never be perfectly good by everyone's standards. And that's okay. I'm just a part of the landscape, like the clouds, or the trees, or the rain. I don't need to be the main character, I just need to be here. And maybe that's the real secret to being content, just realizing that you're already part of the whole. You don't have to earn your place, you don't have to prove your worth. You just have to breathe, and let the world be exactly what it is. Perhaps it's enough just to be a witness to it all. To notice the way the light is fading right now, and the way the house is settling into the night. I've been wondering lately why it is that some things are so incredibly hard to put down, even when they're clearly hurting us. We often tell ourselves that we're being strong by holding on, as if endurance were the same thing as wisdom. But I've been thinking about that threshold, that invisible line we cross where the effort of keeping something becomes more damaging than the act of losing it. I've noticed it in the way we cling to a career that has long since drained our spirit, or how we hold on to the memory of a person who isn't really there anymore. We stay because we're afraid of the void. We stay because we've built so much of our identity around the holding that we don't know who we would be if our hands were empty. There's a quiet truth I've been reflecting on, something about the nature of pain being a teacher. It's like someone pouring hot tea into a cup you're holding. At first, it's just warm, maybe even comforting. But if they keep pouring and the tea starts to overflow, splashing onto your skin, you don't have to decide to put the cup down. You just do it. The pain makes the choice for you. It's an instinct. I've started to realize that maybe we haven't put down our own burdens yet, simply because they haven't burned us quite enough. We're still in that phase where we think we can manage the heat. We think we can adjust our grip, or blow on the steam, or find a way to make it hurt a little less. But why do we wait for the burn? Why do we wait for the crisis, the heartbreak, or the collapse before we finally allow ourselves to be free? I've seen it in so many areas of life. We find it hard to walk away from a bit of status or a title because we're still seduced by the idea of being somebody. We find it hard to let go of money because we're still under the illusion that it's a shield against the uncertainty of the world. We hold on to relationships that have become cages because we still have this flickering, desperate hope that the future will somehow change the past. It's as if we're all carrying these heavy, beautiful ceramic cups, and we're so mesmerized by the glaze and the history of the object that we don't notice our fingers are blistered. I've been looking at my own life like a house I've lived in for decades. When you first move in, everything feels open and full of possibility. But then, slowly, the years start to fill the corners. You buy things because you think you need them, or because you like the way they look for a moment. You keep gifts from people you don't even talk to anymore. You store boxes in the attic because you might need them someday. And then one day, you look around and realize the house has become small. Not because the walls moved, but because the space has been eaten up by things that no longer serve you. You're navigating these narrow paths through your own living room, tripping over the furniture of your past. And yet, when we think about throwing things away, we hesitate. We find a reason to keep every little thing, a memory attached to a chair, a what if attached to an old coat. We'd rather live in a cramped, suffocating space than face the quiet of an empty room. But then, imagine a storm hits, the roof leaks, the rain pours in, and all those things you were so worried about losing are suddenly ruined. The old papers are soaked, the furniture is warped. In that moment of disaster, the choice is made for you. It's easy to throw it all out then because it's no longer yours in the way it used to be. And the moment the curb is full and the house is empty, you walk back inside and you can finally breathe. You realize that the disaster of the leak was actually the kindest thing that could have happened. It forced you to let go of what you weren't strong enough to put down on your own. It makes me wonder what leaks are currently happening in our lives that we're trying so hard to patch. Maybe the struggle itself is the signal to stop repairing the roof and just let the rain clear the room. I've been spending more time lately just sitting alone, away from the noise of the world, and letting these deeper questions surface. Questions that we usually drown out with the television or the internet. Questions like, who am I, really, when no one is watching? Why am I even here in this specific sliver of time? What is it that I'm actually looking for? I think the answers to those questions are the compass of our lives, but we often forget to check the map. If our goal is wealth, then every day is a transaction. If our goal is status, then every day is a performance. But if our goal is just happiness, then the whole structure of our day changes. What is happiness, anyway? We talk about it as if it were a prize we win at the end of a long race. But I'm starting to think that happiness is much more found in the quiet, ordinary moments we usually ignore. It's not in the big promotion or the luxury car. It's in the feeling of being taken care of when you're sick. It's in the warmth of a blanket when you're cold. It's in the sound of a voice you trust. I've realized that I don't need 1,000 people to know my name. I just need a few who truly see me. We're so busy trying to build a life that is successful by everyone else's standards that we forget to build a life that feels good from the inside. We're like people driving luxury cars but never actually looking at the scenery. We're focused on the destination, the arrival, the one day when things are better. But the truth is, we're already here. This is it. This day, this breath, this quiet moment. This is the only life we actually have. I've been reflecting on how much we take our own presence for granted. We assume that our health and our strength are permanent fixtures, like the sun rising. But our time here is so short, and our bodies are so fragile. Why do we wait until we're old or sick to realize that the most important thing we ever had was just the ability to be present, to be able to walk, to breathe, to see the light change? We spend our wealthy years chasing shadows, and then we spend our poor years wishing we had just appreciated the sun. I'm trying to practice a kind of living that doesn't require perfect conditions to be okay. The world isn't perfect. People are going to disappoint us. Work is going to be difficult, and the weather isn't always going to be what we want. But a life that is not perfect can still be deeply meaningful. It's like a song that has a few sad notes in it. Those notes don't ruin the melody. They give it depth. They make it real. I've noticed that as I let go of the need to have everything figured out, the world starts to feel a bit more spacious. I'm not as quick to judge, not as quick to get angry. I can just let things be what they are. It's like being a witness to a beautiful, complicated play. I don't have to rewrite the script. I just have to be here, in my seat, watching it all unfold with a bit of grace and a lot of patience. There's a freedom in just being nobody for a while. To not have to be the one who solves everything or the one who is always right. To just be a person, listening to the world go by. I'm starting to think that the most successful thing you can do is to be at peace with your own heart. Because at the end of the day, when the lights are low and the house is quiet, that's the only thing you're really left with. I'm learning to be grateful for the gaps, the things that didn't work out, the people who didn't stay. They've left me with more room to breathe. They've taught me that I don't need as much as I thought I did. It's a quiet sort of joy, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be felt. It's just there, like the air. Maybe the reason we struggle so much is that we're always looking for the next thing, instead of noticing that the thing we're in right now is already enough. We don't need the whole garden to bloom at once. We just need to appreciate the one flower that's open today. And maybe that's the real work, just staying here, just noticing, just being. Perhaps it's enough just to be a part of the whole, to know that you are a thread in a much larger tapestry, and that even the quietest life has its own beautiful, necessary place. I've been sitting with this thought lately that maybe the most successful thing any of us can ever do is to simply be at peace with our own reflection. Not because we finally become perfect, but because we finally stopped requiring ourselves to be. There's a quiet sort of beauty in that, I think. When you stop trying to take from the world to feel big, you realize that you're already part of something that doesn't have a size. If you're gold, you'll shine whether you're sitting in a palace or in the dust. You don't need to shout about it. You don't need to prove it to anyone. You just have to be true to your own nature, and the rest just takes care of itself. I've noticed that as I let go of the need to be right, or to be noticed, or to be someone, the world starts to feel a bit more spacious. It's like being a witness to a beautiful, complicated play. I don't have to rewrite the script or direct the actors. I just have to be here, in my seat, watching it all unfold with a bit of grace and a lot of patience. It's a freedom that doesn't cost a thing, and yet it feels like the only wealth that actually lasts. Whether we are wealthy or struggling, whether we hold a high title or none at all, the sun is going to rise and set regardless of our standing. We can spend our days chasing after things that will eventually return to the earth, or we can just find a way to be happy right now, to smile at the fatigue, to let the worries of the day just dissolve into the night. It feels like drifting, doesn't it? Like being a cloud that moves across the sky. A cloud doesn't try to hold on to the wind. It doesn't try to stay in one place forever. It just moves. It just is. I've been reflecting on how often we mistake our emotions for who we are. We say, I am sad, or I am angry, but maybe we're just the sky, and the sadness is just a bit of rain passing through. The sky isn't the rain. The sky is what allows the rain to happen, if we can just sit back and watch our feelings come and go, without clinging to them. The heart doesn't have to be so heavy. We spend so much time lamenting the things we've lost, or the way the sunlight of our lives seems to be fading. But the sun is always there. It's just the earth that turns. It's a short trip, this human life. A few decades, if we're lucky. It's far too short to spend it regretting things we can't change, or worrying about things that haven't happened yet. If we can just find a way to be satisfied with enough, then we're already living a life of abundance. We've been told that we need to be more, do more, have more. But what if the real secret is just being able to look at your life and say, this is okay? What if the goal isn't to reach the end with the most stuff, but to reach the end with the clearest heart? I've started to realize that the things we try so hard to pull toward us, the things we think will finally make us complete, are often the very things that end up binding us. We think we're grabbing hold of life, but we're actually just getting caught in the net. True freedom is walking with empty hands and not feeling like anything is missing. It's being able to see someone else's success and feel a genuine spark of joy for them, because you know that their light doesn't make your world any darker. There's a comfort in the realization that we're all just visitors here. We didn't bring anything with us when we arrived, and we won't take anything with us when we leave. The only thing that truly belongs to us is the quality of our presence, the way we inhabit this moment, right now. If we can just move through our days with a bit of kindness, a bit of humor, and a lot of acceptance, then we've done what we came here to do. I'm learning to appreciate the gaps now, the things that didn't work out, the people who didn't stay. They've left me with more room to breathe. They've taught me that I don't need nearly as much as I thought I did to be okay. It's a quiet sort of joy, the kind that doesn't need to be announced. It's just there, like the air. And as the night gets deeper and the world outside starts to quiet down, I find myself thinking about the horizon. We're all heading toward it, in our own way, at our own pace. There's no need to rush. There's no need to push. The current knows where it's going, and we're already in the water. Maybe the real work is just staying here, not trying to be anywhere else, just noticing the way the breath feels, noticing the way the house is settling, noticing that, in this very moment, there is actually nothing that needs to be fixed. There is nothing that needs to be added. The life we've been looking for, it's not something we have to build. It's something we just have to stop obscuring with all our noise. And once the noise stops, and the wanting fades, and the hands finally open, you might notice that everything you ever needed was already right here, just waiting for you to notice it. In the quiet, in the space between the thoughts.